Hi, my name is Brian Thomas, and I'm a National Account Manager with TCI. I'd like to take a few minutes to walk you through TCI's award-winning Bring Science Alive program and show you some of the more popular features of that program and how it really inspires students to not only do the NGSS, but to do it in a way that's exciting and inviting, that's going to keep them coming back and wanting to know more and more. So without any further ado, let me go ahead and we're going to go live. I'm going to be sharing screenshots. We're going to go live into a teacher and a student subscription so that you get the idea of what the program includes. So with that, let me just share with you very quickly on our website, which is teachtci.com. You can learn more about the basics of the program by going and taking a look at your TCI subscription resources. Under K-8 Science, you can click on elementary programs, and in any of these right here, you can click into a particular grade and see what types of features, both the subscription and the print, that's available for teachers to be able to use. So for example, I'm going to click into print features. And with the third grade program, on the teacher side, we create a teacher subscription. It's an online subscription where you have your lesson plan, your assessments, all of the black line masters that you would need to be able to copy off and provide for students. All of that is held in a subscription that's online, and it works on any type of connected device. On the print side for a teacher, we do produce placards, which are laminated color cards that you use with some of the activities when the students are moving around in particular stations. Those would be provided in print. However, we also provide a materials kit that would have any kind of resources that you would need as a teacher to be able to conduct the lab activities or investigations that go with any of our K-5 Bring Science Alive program. Now, if you wanted to know more about what's inside that materials kit, over on the left-hand side here, you'll see right down from print features, you can click into science materials. And one of the things that we've provided for you is a quick video that shows you exactly what goes inside that science material kit. And one of the things that's really popular with teachers is that we bag all of those resources by lesson itself. So everything that you need to do for a lab investigation is already put together in a nice package for you, unless it's a common material. So we make it easy not only to get ready for the lesson, but we also make it easy on this website to reorder materials if you need them. Back to the print feature side of things. On the student side, we do produce a hardbound edition for Bring Science Alive, as well as a consumable where the students would capture their notes and their activity or their investigation notes when they're going through a lesson. So the hardbound text is provided, as well as a consumable notebook that you can purchase with the use of this program. Now, having said that, I'm going to click on subscription features because I've already teased you a little bit on the teacher side that your teacher resources are all online, except for those placards and the investigation kit. So the teacher subscription includes a presentation, which is really kind of a visual lesson guide to plan and prepare a lesson with. But you have assessment tools, both formative and summative. You have the ability to be able to send messages and share files with students. You can always differentiate a lesson. We'll always provide you at least 3 modification supports with each one of the lesson activities that you're going through. And of course, everything was built from the ground up around the NGSS framework. Within the student subscription, not only do we have the print text and the consumable, but some schools, they may opt to go completely paperless, and we provide a solution for that. So the student subscription has that entire text. It's the same that would be in the print book. It's just an online version of it, as well as it has some additional features that a print book just simply doesn't have. So for example, we have what are called interactive tutorials, which is really kind of a sandbox. It allows the students to kind of visually play with the concepts that they're reading about. There's their interactive student notebook, which is that consumable piece, but we've actually digitized it so students can do it online if they want. We also have game-like reading challenges, reading tools. There's all sorts of text tools that make it more accessible for students with needs, whether it's Spanish edition or having the text read aloud to the students, or even have the main ideas. And everything that works in terms of the student or the teacher subscription, it works on PCs, Macs, smartphones, Chromebooks, you name it. If it has an on-off switch and a browser, it's likely to work with our subscriptions. So that's a little bit about what we sell with the Bring Science Alive program. You can certainly look at the pricing by clicking on purchase and see how we go about pricing all of those resources. One of the things that I want to do, though, is I'm going to click on this little button right up here. It says TCI. It takes us back to the home page. And I also want to direct your attention right over here, where you have an opportunity to be able to sign up for a 30-day trial of the subscription. So you can go to Teach TCI, click on that green button, and you can try any of the science programs, or for that matter, our social studies programs, free for 30 days. And you have access to all of the lessons to be able to try them out with your students. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to log in as a teacher. You'll see these buttons right up here that says student sign in and teacher sign in. I'm going to log in as a teacher. We're going to take a look at a subscription and see from the teacher's perspective how you go about planning and using TCI's Bring Science Alive program, as well as what the students use with this program if they're using the online subscription. So when you log in, one of the things that you're going to see is it's going to take you to a table of contents. And with the Bring Science Alive program, from kindergarten through second grade, there's always going to be an earth science unit, a life science unit, and a physical science unit in each of those grades. Here we can see, for example, in the fourth grade program, there is a life science unit in Unit 1. And then there are 9 chapters, or what we would call lessons that make up Unit 1. These correspond to the same chapters that would be in the book or in the online subscription for the students. So Unit 1 is on life science. Unit 2 is a physical science unit on energy. Unit 3 is an earth science unit on Earth's changing surface. Now, in grades 3, 4, and 5, because of the NGSS framework and how the standards are shifted down, or spread out, I should say, we include an additional one of those 3 types of sciences in the grades 3, 4, and 5. So, for example, grade 4 here, we can see an additional physical science unit on waves and information. And we're actually going to go ahead and we're going to look at a lesson 2 here in just a minute on what are some properties of waves. But before I do that, one of the things I also want to point out on this homepage is this homepage will provide you a lot of information about what happens in those lessons, how much time it takes, and whether or not you're going to need some specific materials from those material investigation kits that we sell. So when you click the Expand All button, or you click the plus button for an individual lesson, what you'll get is some detailed summaries of what happens in that lesson. I'm going to click Expand All so that we can see all of them together. And when I do that, notice right here underneath the essential question, which is also the chapter title, we'll see a description of the activity that happens in class, how much time it would take in class to be able to do it, and whether or not you're going to need any TCI kit resources to be able to do that lesson. So, for example, in lessons 1 and 2 here, they both take about 100 minutes, but don't need any resources from that kit. The first time we do an investigation that needs resources from that kit would be lesson 3. So you get a lot of information holistically just by looking at the table of contents and clicking Expand All. I also want to direct your attention before we go inside of a lesson to these menus here at the top, because they're really important in terms of navigation as using it as a teacher. So presentations will be something that you use quite often. It's the visual lesson guide, but it's also used to facilitate the lesson inside your class. You have a link for materials where we arrange all of the resources that you would need as PDFs or a visual guide on things that would come out of the kit. We arrange them by lesson. Assignments gives you the capability of assigning chapters, reading challenges, assessments to students. We have a link for the assessments where you can see not only the formative, but also create your summative assessments or use a summative assessment, perhaps even share an assessment with someone else who's using the same program. The grade book is what you will use when students are using the online subscription. Any work that they do online, whether it's their notebook reading challenges, which we'll take a look at, or their assessment, and then the ability to give them a participation grade. Those are all cataloged together in a grade book. So this is what that button would take you to. And then this category right here that says more is just what it says. There's additional information such as a pacing guide, or one of the things that I really like to take a look at as I'm getting ready to look at a lesson is the science background. So there's all sorts of tools underneath here. We'll take a look at those more specifically in just a few moments. I actually want to go ahead and we're going to click inside of a lesson now, and we're going to take a look at lesson 2 from Unit 4. Unit 4 is on waves and information, and we're going to look at what are some properties of waves. Now, this lesson, students are going to develop a model that describes patterns of waves. So we're going to be working with amplitude and wavelength and things like that. And then they're going to act out these properties as a part of a processing that happens within this lesson. Total time in class is going to be about 115 minutes, and I am going to need some of the resources from that kit. When you're ready to click inside of a lesson, you just click on the lesson title. And when you do that, what's going to happen is it is going to open up a page from the presentations, and we can see this presentation right here. You'll note that there's some tools right here that we can use for navigation, so I can move forward and back. And these are all slides. We also have a slider scale over here that you can use to quickly move to different slides in this lesson. But this is what you'll use to plan your lesson. It's a visual lesson guide. And note, underneath here, there are special notes for teachers on specific slides. So if I advance these slides, you'll see that those teacher notes change depending on what information is on that slide. One of the things that we've heard from teachers loud and clear is that a lot of teachers, they like to be able to print out a lesson guide so that they can use it as they're facilitating the lesson inside your class. And note right here, you can click print and you can print out this entire lesson guide. So I'm going to click print. We'll take a look at what that looks like. You can save it as a PDF, open it up, and very similar to PowerPoint, how they'll have the notes. We call this a presentation guide. You'll see the slides as well as the notes that go right along with it so that you can plan and prepare for your lesson. So we make it really simple to be able to get ready to teach a lesson by preparing a really great presentation that walks you through all the facets of a lesson. The first group of slides is all about instruction. And so let's take a look at that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click through just the first 5 or 6 slides quickly so that you can kind of get an idea of what's there. I'll describe what's there, and then we'll look again very quickly at what remains there that you would use inside class with the students. So at the beginning here, we're going to provide for you the next generation science standards. We'll give you the performance expectation, the disciplinary core idea, the cross-cutting concept, and also we'll point out of the science and engineering practices, which ones we are going to highlight in that lesson. Oftentimes, there's several that you'll see of the 8 science and engineering practices. However, in each of the lessons, one is always a spotlighted one, perhaps 2 of them. In this one here, we can see that they're going to be developing a model. So developing and using models will be the highlighted or the spotlighted science and engineering practice as a part of that. So we'll always put the standards right up front as your second slide. We'll always give you the materials that you're going to need. So right here, I can see from my teacher investigation kit, I'm going to need some containers, some lids. I'm going to need some spring toys and some string. And that's like I said before, if you see that little video of how we put things together, all of these materials are already bagged together for you so that you don't have to reach in and grab them from different containers and things like that. Everything's going to be right there together. Now, I do see underneath here a PDF that says Interactive Student Notebook. Now, let me stop right there and explain. The consumable notebook, if your students have a hardbound text and a consumable notebook that you purchase from us, that's what that interactive student notebook is. So you would not need to print that out if you already have the consumable notebook, unless a kid lost their notebook or something like that. Many schools, they opt not to buy the consumable notebook, and rather what will happen is the teacher will go in and they will print these PDFs out and make them available to students a lesson at a time. So that's a second way in which you can use it. And yet there's one more way, a third way in which you can use the program, and that is if the students all have online access, this interactive student notebook is actually digitized and a part of the student subscription. So they can do it online. So you may or you may not need to print out this PDF here. It really depends on how you're using the program. We try to give you lots of options. There are always some teacher supplied materials that you might need to provide, things that wouldn't be in the kit that you probably have readily available. So water and scissors are examples within this lesson. So the materials page is important to kind of point out what you're going to need to conduct this lesson with the students. We'll also give you any kind of presentation tips in terms of preparation for the class. So before the class, in this case, we want to cut some string in advance. We want to make sure that we think about how we're going to ask some of the questions to students, as well as maybe putting some of the water in the containers in advance so that we save some instructional time inside of the class. So we'll give you some presentation preparation tips that you can think about. And anytime there is a lesson with an investigation where the students are going to be doing an activity lab investigation in class, we'll always provide for you a video tutorial. And this one we can see a video by Ari. Ari is one of our science developers, and what he does in just a matter of about 3.5 minutes, he'll walk you through all of the different aspects of this lab investigation. It's not only great for you to watch as a teacher before you do the lesson, but it can also be a great tool for modeling for the students what they will be doing later on in the lesson activity. So you can click and you can play that. You can even, with this right here, you'll note that there's a little embed tool. So if your class uses a blog or a wiki or something like that, you can actually embed that video right inside of your website. As I advance in the lesson, I get a little bit more detail about how much time each facet of the lesson will take. So I'm given an overview where it gives me my EQ, my preview, or my anticipatory set is going to take 5 to 10 minutes, and this is what we're going to do. Then we're going to do a small group investigation. It's going to take me 90 minutes. So in my class, it would take at least a couple of days to be able to go through. And then the students will read the text. They'll complete their interactive student notebook. And at the end of this lesson, we scaffold. We always push the students harder and harder through the content. At the end, we're going to always challenge them to do something with that information. So here it's going to take 10 to 15 minutes at the very end, and they're going to analyze some diagrams to describe properties of waves. So total time, again, about 115 minutes to be able to do this lesson. And everything that I'm sharing with you, whether you're a kindergarten teacher or you're a 5th grade teacher, feature-wise, everything that I'm showing you is the same from grade to grade. Differences are content and age appropriateness of the standards and the activities, not in terms of the features that are available to you as a teacher or as students. The rest of these slides are where we would use it to not only kind of click through and see what's going to unfold in this lesson and how it unfolds from start to finish, but as a teacher, I actually want to use this to facilitate the activity in class. You can go full screen mode, and I would encourage you to do that because it gets rid of all the gobbledygook in the background, and you're able to click through the presentation and show all of the directions, see all of the visuals that go with it. And note right here, as I'm clicking through, you'll see prompts that we give to the students. You'll see images, thumbnails, any of those you're able to click on and see in larger detail, whether it's a chart, a graph, whatever it might be. If there's videos, we'll actually embed them right inside of this presentation. Any audio, all of that is there. And what this presentation will do is it will take you from start to finish through the entire lesson activity. And this is what you would use when you're in class actually doing the activity with students. So I'm going to click through to the very end of this lesson. I'm going to escape out of it. I just moved my mouse up here to the top, and I'm going to escape full screen. We're going to go back here, and I'm going to use the slider scale to go towards the very end of the lesson. You'll see interactive pieces as a part of this presentation, things that you could do at your interactive whiteboard with the students, or perhaps you're using an iPad to show your presentation using something like Apple TV. You could actually have the students do drag and drop for vocabulary. as well as some other features that we've put inside these slides. There's also always a science talk that we provide as part of the processing activity at the end, so that you can kind of wrap this up together. So those are some great tools that you can use to plan, but let me share with you a couple others. As a teacher preparing for a lesson, if you've got a large group of students, you likely have a large, you have some diversity when it comes to ability. And so one of the things that we provide for each of the lessons, and I teased you with it before over here, is this more category. When you click it up at the top, you'll see under teacher resources something called differentiating instruction. When you click on that, what we provide for each of the lesson activities is three modifications that you can make towards that lesson. It's always specific to that lesson and activity that the students are doing. So here is a modification for ELL students. Here's one for students that have special needs. As well as your gifted and talented, how can you enrich and challenge them to go a little bit further? So the differentiating instruction is something that we provide for each one of the lessons, kindergarten through 5th grade, and later on, once we have 6th through 8th grade, we'll have that feature as well. So the differentiating instruction combined with the presentation itself allows you to be able to get ready to teach the lesson and then use that to facilitate it with students inside your class. Next, we're going to take a look at the student side of things, and I'm going to show you from a student's vantage what they see when they're using the program. Now, as a teacher, your teacher subscription always has the ability to go into what we call a student view, so you can see exactly what the students see. Now, I've already clicked that and opened it in an additional window right up here that we can see. And I'm in Chapter 2 of Unit 4, what are some properties of waves. I can navigate to different sections. The students can just by clicking on a topic. If you're on a smaller screen device, you may see this picture up here and just slide your finger down or mouse down or scroll down and you'll see the text underneath. And to reiterate, this is the very same text that would be in the hardbound edition book. There's no difference in terms of content. The differences are in features. So for example, the students can have
2. The properties of waves on a string.
Text to audio. They can click a main idea viewer. And what that's going to do is it's going to put in bold the key sentences within a section of text. They'll also see anytime that there is a key content term like independent, it's hyperlinked to the definition. So they can click it and see a definition right away. If there's a key graph or chart or an image that they want to see in greater detail on their device, all they need to do is to touch it or click it, and it will go nice and big, as well as the caption that would be underneath. If they do it from a Mac or a PC, we build in a little magnifying glass so that they can see it even larger and more closely. Now, if they're on like a mobile device of some sort that has a touch screen, they just use pinch and zoom, and they can do the very same thing. Underneath the text within a section, one of the things that we'll always include is a great formative assessment called an interactive tutorial. Now, this is a sandbox. It gives the students an opportunity, after having read this information, to kind of come down and begin to play with the concept a little bit more. So in section 2 here, they read a little bit about the properties of waves on a string. So they'll read about amplitude as well as wavelength. And then after reading about those things as well as frequency, they can come down here and begin to play a little bit with the idea of what does it look like when the amplitude changes. Perhaps it's not a wave that doesn't have as large of an amplitude, or maybe they want to play with a wave that has a very large amplitude, but also a very long wavelength. So they can play with the waveometer that we put inside there, as well as come down here, do a little drag and drop, put inside what they think that the answers are to the prompt that they're given, and then check it against what's there. Whoops, I missed 3 of them right off the bat. So what that's going to do is it's going to challenge the students to come back up here, reread the section or parts of it, come back down here, try it again. So the interactive tutorial is a formative assessment that we build as a part of the student subscription that the students can do. I've also talked a little bit about the notebook. Now, if you remember, I said that the notebook is provided in 3 formats. We have the consumable version. So if you have a hardbound book and you have consumable notebooks with the students, That's the interactive student notebook. You have a PDF that you can print out for each of the lessons, or one of the things that I said is that we also digitized a version of the interactive student notebook for the students, and that is where they would go in and complete it online. So we even build in the tools if they need to annotate by drawing, or they need to add text to something. They can do all of that by using the tools that we provide in here. When the students save their answer, it's going to show up in your teacher gradebook, and we'll take a look at that in just a few moments. So their notebook is arranged by section, just like they would open up their consumable notebook and look to complete section 2 of chapter 2. That's where we would find this as a part of the student subscription. So it's always arranged a similar way. And that way you could have students, some doing it online and some doing it on doing a print version, and you should not have any kind of differences in terms of what their takeaway is, because it was all built around the same information. So the student subscription has the text, it has the tutorial, it has the notebook. We also include as a part of the subscription something called the reading challenge. And a reading challenge is a little game-like activity that students have at the end of the lesson where they're presented with questions, they answer them, and then they get immediate feedback on how they're doing. As they go through and they complete these questions, it ends up being a really great study guide for them before they move to their summative. So this is a formative assessment. Unlike, though, that tutorial, everything that they do in this game does come to you in your grade book. And again, we'll take a look at what those results would look like in just a few moments. But the reading challenge is provided as a part of each one of the lessons inside your K-5 Bring Science Alive program. We also included as a part of the student subscription the investigation. So when the students do the investigations that go with the lessons, they could do it in their interactive student notebook, either the consumable, you could print it out from your materials, or the students can do it online as well. So not just the prompts that go with the book, but the actual investigation notes themselves, where they would jot down their notes from their investigations. We also digitized that content too. They do have glossary cards that have animated versions of their key content vocabulary. So here is amplitude. I can study my vocabulary just by looking at the card and then flipping over to see the definitions on the back. And similar to you, as a teacher, the students have a more category as well. This is where they would get a quick link to be able to see any assessments that you've assigned them, as well as some other resources such as glossary, correlations, biographies, career profiles, all sorts of information that students can explore. I want to remind you that your teacher subscription always has this very same content by clicking Student View. And you'll know that you're in Student View because that title will then change to Teacher View at the top, because if you want to go back to look at those resources from a teacher's vantage, then you just click the button Teacher View and it takes you back that way. So far we've looked at presentations and how you go about planning for a lesson. We've looked at how you see the methods by which we can differentiate the lesson for different students inside the class. We've looked at the materials that are arranged by lesson, and we've also looked at the student subscription. What we're going to focus in the last portion here are on assessments, and then we'll finish off with looking at how you go about assigning the work and then seeing it inside the gradebook once it's all complete. So let's click on assessments, and we'll take a look at how you go about building an assessment. And we were in Unit 4 and Section 2. So I'm going to go down to Unit 4, Lesson 2. And when I click on that, it shows me my formative assessment options. All of these we've talked about already. The reading challenge is a part of the student subscription, but this little icon, if I click it, it actually takes me to that reading challenge. And we could actually do it as a class rather than the students do it individually. The interactive tutorial, that's the sandbox. The student notebook, so this is where we can see the print version, the online version. We can even assign it. We can grade it. And the ability to give the students a participation grade. This would take you right to the grade book and allow you to be able to give the students a participation grade. Now that would really sort of go along with formative assessment, because you're kind of gauging the students as they go through these lessons. Well, at the end of the lesson, you certainly want to focus in on the summative assessment side of things. And we do write an assessment. Both English and Spanish versions are available that go with each one of the lessons. However, most teachers, they want to be able to, kind of create their own assessment. And so we provide for you two tools at the bottom by which you can create either a print version or an online version of a test. You'll see a green button here that says create a printable test or create an online version of the test. And underneath that online version, if you're in a larger district and you want to share assessment to do common assessment, you'll even have the ability to be able to do that. I'm going to show you how easy it is to create an assessment. We're going to create an online one. So you start by clicking a button. You give your test a name. So I'm going to say sample here. And then I'm going to be given some menus where I can add questions from either TCI's question bank. So that would be questions that TCI developed that are specific to this lesson. So I can pick these questions right here, or I can even select all of them and add them to my assessment. I can even pull in questions, say, from a teacher question bank. So these would be questions that other teachers perhaps have written that would go really well with that lesson. You can, and I'll show you, when you compose your own questions, you can choose to whether or not they would become a part of this teacher question bank. So you not only have TCI's questions, but questions that other TCI teachers or users out there have created, and add them into your assessment. Now, once they're in your assessment, you'll see them listed right here. You can click and reorder them. You can go inside, you can edit the question. So if you wanted to take away a couple of the plausible detractors, you could do that, or reword the question, modify that assessment if you'd like. You can even then go in and create your own. So we give you 3 choices. You can create a multiple choice, open-ended, or even open-ended drawing. With any of those, you provide what the directions would be. We'll give you the option of being able to upload an image to go with it, as well as provide either the key if it's multiple choice, or in the case of an open-ended text or an annotation, provide what the model response should look like. You have a button right here at the bottom when you're composing your own question that gives you the ability of adding that question into the teacher question bank. And that way other teachers can benefit from your genius. We'll also provide you some formatting tools there. But at the bottom, once you're all done putting your test together, you might want to look at, if it's an online test, what does it look like to a student who would take this online? So you can click preview and it will show what this assessment looks like. I can then go back and say, well, that looks great. I'm ready to go ahead and assign it. Or perhaps I want to share this assessment with my other teachers on my team. I can even make a print PDF copy of it, and certainly the answer key. Let's say I'm ready to assign it. So when I click assign, it's going to take us to this menu right up here that we were looking at before, assignments. And if I scroll down here a little bit, we will see that under lesson 2 that I've already created an assignment for this test. It's going to be due on January 22nd. So the students now know when they log in and they click inside their more category and see assessments, they'll see that they have to complete this assessment by that certain day and time. So it's really simple to go in and assign either a chapter or to assign an assessment. If it's an assessment, you need to make sure that you create in advance. If it's a chapter, just give it the date that you want it to be completed by and click assign, and it becomes a part of the student's subscription in terms of an assignment for them. So really simple to be able to manage all of that. But let's lastly take a look at where all of this information that students do online come into your subscription, and that would happen inside your gradebook. So we're going to click on this tool now. And when we go inside the gradebook, you'll see in this class right here, I only have one student, just Charlie Brown. He's the only kid that I've got. All of your students would be listed on to the left over here. And there would be 4 categories that you can manage within the gradebook. The first is the notebook, the reading challenge, which is that little game-like reading activity that happens at the end of the lesson. If they do an online assessment, their scores would appear here. and then the ability to give them a participation grade. You would see that under this column over here. To see a student's notebook, it's as simple as going and clicking in next to their name on that row and column. So here, when I click inside Charlie Brown's notebook, I can see within the section introduction, he was asked to give 3 questions about how scientists describe the properties of waves. I can see my answer key that students are going to answers will vary there. I can see when Charlie Brown completed this. It's timestamped for me, as well as his responses right here. So what's the difference between sound waves and water waves? What makes a wave go up and down? And why do bad things happen to good people? Well, you can go inside and you can provide the students comments. So one of the things that I said to Charlie in reply is, does that last question have anything to do with Lucy and the football, or your baseball team, or your dog and how he treats you? It's all depressing. So Charlie Brown, I can see his answers. I can provide him feedback, whether it's a written prompt or even an annotation. So for example, in the first section on the properties of waves, one of the things that students are challenged to do is to annotate a diagram with correct terminology based on what they've learned. So my key here, my model right here is my key that I can check against the student work. So Charlie put in crest, rest position, trough, wavelength, amplitude. I think he's got it all right. And he even added a little bit of other little artwork there for me. So again, I can provide him feedback there and then give him a score and move back to my grade book. So their notebook, it's really simple to be able to manage and see the student responses if they do it online. Now, we looked at that little game-like reading challenge earlier. What does it look like to you as a teacher when you view that? Well, I can click inside and I can see Charlie Brown's responses for each one of those 9 questions, as well as the bonus question. And I can see, for example, with question 2, he missed the initial response, but he got it on a second guess, so he got a half a point. Whereas in question 9, he missed completely. He missed it 2 times, and the third time the computer tells him what the answer is. So clearly he did not know this answer right here, which is sometimes really important, not only to know what they do or don't know, but sometimes what did they think was correct answer is sometimes very helpful. So I can see individual responses like that. I can even reset the challenge score. There are some teachers that will use this as a pre-test, post-test. So they'll give the students a reading challenge at the beginning of the lesson and then reset the challenge score and then have them take it at the end of the lesson and see their growth. You could do that very simply and manage it right from your grade book. The other thing that you can do with the reading challenge and the assessment is do an item analysis. So we can click in view trends up here. And if we had several students in this class, what we would see is any questions where there's a certain percentage that didn't meet a threshold. So for example, right here, we'll see a little key. Less than 80% of the students answered correctly. Well, questions 2 and 9, I only had 1 student in this class, but let's say I had 30 students in the class and 10 of them missed question number 2. Clearly that would be highlighted because less than 80% will have answered that question correctly. That's really important information for me to have instructionally because that means I need to hit that before I move to the summative assessment because something's missing there more than just a student. Perhaps the fire alarm went off in that class that you were teaching. Something happened, but instructionally we need to focus in on the content there because these same types of questions here will show up again in their summative assessment. Not exactly unless you pull them in from our question bank, but perhaps variations of them. So we want to make sure we go back and hit that a little bit harder before we move to our summative assessment. So the grade book catalogs all of this information for the reading challenge as well as their online assessment. So here, Charlie actually did an online assessment. He missed 1 question out of the 5 that I asked. I had to go in and see his response for this question right here. So let's say that blah, blah, blah was his answer. Of course, I guess that would kind of be what the teacher sounds like to Charlie. So maybe that's what students sound like to the teacher. But anyway, the student responses would show up here as a teacher on an open-ended item, and then you would give them a score. And I've already done that. So we can see their results on their online assessment, very similar to how their reading challenges are set up, and we can even do a view trends there. Lastly, as a formative assessment step, we always provide the teacher the capability of going in and giving the students a participation grade. And I've already done that for Charlie here. I've given him up to 5 points. I've given him 5 out of 5 because I thought he did a great job in the investigation when he partnered with that little red-haired girl. So you can give the students formative assessment feedback through the participation scores as a part of your grade book for each one of the lessons. Again, to navigate to different lessons, it's as simple as using drop down menu that's provided. And one last detail that I want to share with you is it's this tool right here, the export table to CSV. So if I wanted to take all of this information and perhaps upload it into Progress Book or another grading program that allows the importation of CSV files, well, I first need to export the table. So here you've got a very helpful link that will export it as a CSV, allows you to save it, and then you can upload it into your grading program. With that, I'm going to come back to our table of contents page. The Bring Science Alive program, particularly the teacher subscription, provides everything that you're going to need to be able to do some really great exercises with students, investigations that will take them deep into the NGSS framework and will have your students really excited to learn science. The student subscription provides more than just an online version of the book. It's the tutorial, it's the notebook, it's the reading challenge, and the ability to take online assessments. So it's so much more than just a static version of an online text. And we really think that these tools working in tandem will bring science alive for you. I'll go back to our website and then I'll close out our time here together. Again, please let me encourage you to go to teachtci.com, click on that green button here and sign up for a free trial of the TCI program. You'll see all of the lessons that are there. The only thing that we lock down is the assessments, but you have access to every lesson that's a part of that. You can actually try it out with your students. If you do have questions, you please email us info@teachtci.com or call us at 800-497-6138, and we will answer any questions that you have. I do want to thank you for your time and the attention that you've given. Please share this link to this on-demand webinar with other teachers as well.